There's a lot of
Yeah.
responsibility that comes with it, and it's not easy. Like, I really believe when you're
Yeah.
really walking when you're walking your path, it can go one of two ways. You're walking that fine line between genius and insanity, and it can go
Yeah.
either way. And
Yeah.
so for a lot of people, I think
Yeah.
they fear what could happen if they don't handle it well. Once you're really rooted in something truly substantive, you know that you can handle whatever comes your way, and
That's
and
true.
bring on the test. Bring on the
Yeah.
test. My gift is a reflection of that thing I want to do no matter how hard it is. I'm going to do that no matter how hard it is, no matter what the obstacles are in front of me. And it's going to test me, but I'm going to meet that challenge head on because there's something calling me in that direction that I have no choice but to follow.
Hey, y'all, what's happening? Another episode of 4050 Social Club back at it again. Love to be back in this space. And you see some new faces here. We got a guest joining us today, our
What up? What up?
homeboy, General Pastor Levon Sutton, also known as Duke. So you'll hear any one of these names throughout the whole episode. We talking about our guest. So welcome to 4050, man. We love to
Yes,
have you
sir.
here today. And just really want to share some things with you as we talk about why you're here, getting to know you. We said this year we wanted to bring some of our friends, family, people that we look up to come into this space, share church with us, and really reflect on 40s and 50s in a different way. So welcome, man. Quest is taking a break. He's on vacation. We wishing you safe travels, bro. You are here with us in spirit and truth. Love you, man. But we here to love on our brother Levon and get to know him a little bit as we talk about some basic things that we want to share tonight. So let's
Well,
jump
thank you,
into
fellas. I
this,
really
y'all.
do
Let's jump
appreciate it.
into it.
Really do appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So let's do this then. So before we get into that, because that's going to be a riveting topic, let's talk about how we all know each other. Like, y'all met before y'all met me. Like, I came to Kenyon where y'all were in the fall of '94, but let's start when y'all met back in that year
That's
before
right.
that, '93.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Go
we're
ahead.
both from Cleveland. I know Jamie grew up in Warrensville. I grew up in Cleveland. And just the summer before we all went to college, we all got a chance to meet each other. And I remember the first meeting that Jamie and I and another friend of ours in common all went, we went out that evening. And I didn't really know Jamie, but I watched him. I saw how he moved. And I was like, oh, okay, this dude is really, really unique. He's different. And I was immediately attracted to, his uniqueness. And so I knew it was like a great prelude to us all coming to a very small private liberal arts school in the middle of nowhere. And so I learned he plays soccer and he played soccer all his life. I didn't grow up watching soccer, but I can definitely say I learned that beautiful sport as he played it on the field. And so just so grateful for, the opportunity, so grateful for the journey. We all were freshmen, 18, 19 years old, trying to come into our own. Probably thought we knew more than we really did at that time.
Of
But
course.
we all brought our own unique personality to this campus. And, you know the old saying, iron sharpens iron. So we've always done that to one another. I've learned to see him as, a bigger brother, but also one that I'm like, man, you're not really that bigger than me. And we all have these alpha male personalities. But when it comes to just, great human beings in the world, we've had conversations. All of us actually have had conversations over our lives from those, late teens to, now in our 40s and 50s. And each and every one of us has poured something amazing into one another at various points in our lives. And so when I'm out in the world navigating here in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, that's where I represent right now, but I'm still a kid from Cleveland. I always bring a part of this community. This is my village with me. And so my village travels from California all the way to the East Coast. And so it's just, obviously a privilege and an honor to be with you guys today. It feels like we were back on the hill just having one of those conversations again. So it's so beautiful to see you guys doing this and an honor for me to even be in your space right now.
We welcome you, man. We welcome you. So Jay, how about you? I almost called you fat for a second. We were
Man,
really
taking
back
me
on the hill
back.
talking about that.
Taking
So
me
Jay,
back.
what about
Taking me
you though?
back. Yeah,
Yes.
I think for
We
me,
got Dukes in here. What's this mean to you?
yeah, I think for me, I remember meeting Levon, and you know, he don't tell this about you, but Levon was valedictorian of his class, and he
Oh,
went
Oh,
to the
man.
school that my uncles and my mom, they all went to his alma mater, high school. So I was
John F.
always
Kennedy.
intrigued
mm,
by that, you know, and so, but to meet somebody, because of course I thought I was a pretty smart dope cat, and then I met another cat that's a smart dope cat too. So I'm looking at him like, who is you? And he looking at me like, who is you? You know,
Who's
so
you?
we always had like this thing between us, but it was always healthy and
uh,
competitive and always like little brother, big brother type vibe.
Yep.
And I remember we just really coddled each other in ways. He was president of BSU and I was
mm,
president of BU. And, you know, we just had these parallel things going on. He ran track, I played soccer, you know, so it was like we had parallel things going on. And I think as Levon has mentioned, we've been running and walking in parallel at different times, sometimes
mm,
one pulling the other forward, the other one
mm,
pulling the other one, you know, in different ways. And so that's one thing I love about him. I think he's always going to be the brother that pushes me to
mm.
do things differently, you know, and walk and grow into my uniqueness. And so it's just been
Yes.
cool to do life with him and see each other grow as we've gotten older.
Man, I love the way you
Yeah,
said that. I really do. And then I think
yeah,
about it coming into this. So again, y'all met. I came in that year after. I had gone to this small school in
that's
the middle of
right.
nowhere, Massachusetts, and I come from
That's
there,
right.
graduated '94, and transplant
Mhm.
myself to a small school in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And it was different. It was different. Like when I was a student, big city kid, grew up in Chicago. I went to college in an environment like that, but when you're a student, you get all the distractions of being a student, right? I get to
Right.
Kenyon though, and my community became y'all as students. Like I was just a couple years older
That's
than you all.
right.
And you all welcomed me in, like, hey, we got a new black man on campus. You're an
Yep.
administrator, so you're different than us, but I was in all the vices y'all were into, you know what I mean? So I hung out in ways I probably shouldn't, but we had a great time. Like we really had a good time. And I
That's right.
appreciated
That's
being a
right.
part of that because y'all kept me sane out there, man. Like you really, really did and
Yeah,
gave me a sense of purpose. I know we're going to get into purpose from there. And when I think about it too, and Dukes, we talked about this a couple days ago, where after I left, so I was there with y'all for 2 years. I left and actually went back to Williams and was doing admissions for another couple years. And I remember when
That's
Dukes, after he
right.
graduated, came out there and saw me. He came out there, Shane came out there to Massachusetts.
Yep.
I've been talking about Williams and what it was, and these brothers took me up on it, got to stay with me in the apartment. I started taking them on hikes up on Mount Greylock. Yeah, it was a good time. Like it was a good time. And then
They
when I wound up moving to DC, which was there too. And of course, that's like ready-made family. Got to link up there. I didn't stay there that
That's
long. I was
right.
only there for that year. But I love the way that brotherhood exists between us. And it's one of those things, it's like we may not see each other forever, but when we're back
Yeah.
together, it's like it was just yesterday.
So
yeah,
It's
true.
been a blessing for me to watch y'all grow up, kind of being the big brother, but like seeing the things that you all are doing, man, it's been amazing. So now that Dukes is getting off into the stuff he's into, and this is where we are about to go next, Duke. So I just want you to talk a little bit briefly about your own journey. So like the pastoral calling, how did that happen for you?
Wow. I moved from Ohio to Washington, D.C., got a job working, in fact, from a mentor who was a 75 alumni from Kenyon,
Mm,
gentleman by the name of Ulysses Hammond, amazing
mm,
man. He was the administrative executive for the D.C. Superior
I remember
Courts.
that
And
mm,
cat.
so
Yeah,
I interned for him the summer before we graduated.
that
And
was
to
your
be
guy.
completely
That was
honest,
your
I
dude.
didn't, yeah, he was
mm,
my guy. He's still my guy,
Mhm,
actually.
mhm,
Shout out to
mhm.
Yuli. But I moved to Washington because he had it. He saw something in me. He
mm,
basically, looked at me back when he was at Kenyon on a visit, and he asked me, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I honestly don't know. I mean, I'm
mm,
thinking about Chicago. I'm thinking about New York, but DC is definitely on the radar." And he said, "Well, why don't you just give me your resume?" And so
mm,
I remember giving him my resume while we were at Kenyon. Senior year was February of 1997. And his secretary called me and she
mm,
said, Mr. Hammond wants you to tell us what you want to do. And I thought to myself, is this really happening? And
Mm,
so I made a commitment to move to Washington, D.C. I originally moved out there because I was going to law school. That was
mm,
kind of already planted in me before I went to Kenyon. Mother wanted me to basically become the next Perry Mason, and I thought that that was my life. And
mm,
so I moved to
Mm,
Washington and really did everything that was designed for me to prepare to go to law school. Applied,
mm,
even got in. And then in 2000, I remember I was going to a Bible study on a
mm.
Wednesday. It was Ash Wednesday of 2000.
Wow.
And I was at the Alfred Street Baptist Church, the historic Alfred Street Baptist Church in Alexandria. And I remember there was a preacher there who preached on the Gospel of Matthew. It was the
Mm,
story of Jesus being baptized. And his sermon was, Baptism is your call to ministry. How is your ministry?
mm,
And I remember I was
mm,
baptized at around 11 or 12 years old. And I was sitting there in this Bible study, this service, thinking to myself, first of all, I don't believe I have a ministry, but this man is speaking about baptism. And
mm,
I remember my baptism, and it was such a profound event for me that I started in that moment feeling something that I had never felt before.
mm,
And I felt this inside voice calling me. And I didn't know
mm,
where it was calling me to. I honestly didn't even see myself going into ministry, but I felt that there was something greater than this ambition that I had to go to law
mm,
school. And so I remember I got out of that service. I told the preacher, Dr. William Bobby McLean, who's now in glory, I
mm,
said, I felt like he was really speaking to me. And so he said, well, son, how is your ministry? And I didn't have an answer for him.
mm.
But I knew that there was something in my life there that had purpose. And so I attended Wesley Theological Seminary,
Okay.
enrolled there in 2001, was working full time, still working in the legal profession as a, paralegal or project manager. I pretty much done everything with all hats
Mm,
other than actually practice law. But then I was attending Wesley.
mm,
And I'm learning about this thing called, pastoral ministry and what it
mm,
means to be a servant leader. And what I realized at that moment was this is what I was meant to do. I was meant to
mm,
serve.
mm,
I was meant to contribute to the world in ways that was bigger
mm,
than myself.
mm,
And everything that I wanted to do at that particular point in my life, I wanted it to give honor to my creator. And I
mm,
also wanted to help other people see their full potential, to live
mhm,
beyond just what they see as their reality and to
mm,
dare to dream big. I
mm.
have like these things that I call BHAG, big audacious goals. And
Wow.
so when I dream big. I mean, I don't settle for just what's average. I don't settle for what's basic. I want what is for me, and I want it beyond what the world's going to tell me. And
Mm,
so I graduated from Wesley, got my MDiv. I met my wife while I was at Wesley, but then, a year after we got married, we had our first daughter. A year after that, we had our second daughter.
wow.
And I realized
You
after
didn't waste no
graduating from
wah,
time.
wah, wah,
seminary,
wah,
I
wah.
didn't, hey,
Ooh, Pete.
what can I say? But no, I didn't. And also what I realized is by the time I graduated from Wesley and have this degree, this MDiv, this Master of Divinity, I'm thriving in my professional career. I mean, I am a sole breadwinner for my family.
Mm,
They're covered, but I didn't feel like, okay, it's time for me to go into any kind of pastoral ministry. So my ministry first started off by being a father, being a husband, being a provider, being a contributor, and really just leaning into that. So we found a church home. That church home helped me nurture myself. Shout out to Epworth in
mm,
Baltimore.
mm,
That's my home. That's my forever home. And it was there back in 2006 that I was really starting to find myself coming into who I am as a servant leader.
mm,
Still working full time, but at that point, I really felt that this call that I put on hold really wasn't on hold.
mm,
What was funny, I was running away from it and realized that going into this church home, I was running right into it because fast forward to 2011, 2012, met an amazing servant leader by the name of Tony Hunt.
mm,
You want to talk about someone who's not basic? Dr. Hunt's not basic. I mean, this dude's he's got a master's, an MBA, he's got two PhDs plus a D-min, and he's teaching at like three or four different schools. I can't keep up with him. But he's also now my doctoral mentor in my doctorate program. So I'm a fifth semester doctorate student at United Theological Seminary in Dayton.
Wow.
I'm living into what we call enacting Dr. Martin Luther King's beloved community.
Mm,
I'm working on projects with respect to community engagement. And if that wasn't enough, 2023, I decided I would go ahead and just start this business venture
mm,
in health and wellness. I've been always been health and wellness. And so I actually bought a franchise back then. And 2024, we opened up our studio. 2 years later, we're like triple the number of members that we had. And I'm looking at opening another studio. And
nice.
so when I talk
Nice.
about everything that I'm doing, it's not enough for this episode. I mean, to be
Yeah,
completely
yeah,
honest.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
man,
there's
that's
still
awesome.
so much that's just teaming and continuing to grow in, everything that I'm doing. And so, I know we're going to get into the reason why I'm here and,
Yeah.
what really sparked that conversation. But as you can tell, I represent a particular model of just believing that there are no limits to what
Mm,
we can do.
Mhm. Yeah.
If we set our minds out for it, if we
that's
have
it.
the faith to pursue it, um, I believe the Creator is going to bless us in ways that our minds cannot ever really imagine. And then we
Mm,
have the benefit of hindsight when we look back over and we say, you pretty much did three, four, five different things at the same time. How did you do it? And give me
mm.
the secret. And my answer is simply this: you just have to trust and believe and then do the work.
Wow.
Mhm.
Man,
That's
that's a
good.
testament right there for sure in a lot of different
Absolutely.
ways. So I know we
Absolutely.
want to get into the story about like how this actually came to be today. So what made you reach out to Jay, to reach out to us about not being basic? Like what was on your heart?
Yeah, well, I'll take this one because Dukes had reached out to me. It was maybe like a week before my wedding,
Huh.
and this was back in August of last year. And he was just like we do, we'll share things with each other that cross spirituality, religion, you name it. And he shared something with me, and it was so profound. It almost brought tears to my eyes when I read it because I was like,
Oh,
ugh, because it
wow.
was like a couple days before my wedding. And it
Mm,
made me think about the chapter that I am in my life and what I'm about to walk through. And it was a conversation I remember I had one time with my wife, and we talked about this whole aspect of being basic and
mm,
how people, that offended us when we heard the word basic. So I
uh,
wanted to
Hmm.
share what Levon shared with me because it was that profound. And I'm just going to share a snippet of it, but this is what brought him to this episode and why we thought it was important that he would be the one to be here with us today. So he talked about this body of work. It's called The Threat of Being Basic. And he said
Hmm.
there is a quiet epidemic sweeping through our culture. It doesn't make headlines, it doesn't trend, and that's exactly the problem. It's the
Hmm.
slow erosion of depth, the soft
Hmm.
suffocation of creativity, the silent
uh,
celebration of sameness. And it's called being basic.
mm, mm,
I don't like that was maybe 4 sentences, but
mm,
what he shared in those 4 sentences, it just really stuck with me because it made me think about where I am in my life. It made me
Hmm.
also think about why we're here and sharing
mm,
time on 4050 Club because there is this piece where, you know, that's sweeping through our culture. I don't know if it's because of social media, but all the other things, or everybody wants to be a rapper, or everybody wants to,
mm,
be like what they're seeing. But there's a lack of depth in our
mhm,
culture, and it's being consumed in other ways that I think is stealing creativity and also ambition and purpose
mm.
in our youth, but also in people that are our age. So
Yes.
it's pretty
Absolutely.
much impacting us across the board. And so just wanted to talk about what it means to be basic,
Mm,
and how do we help our culture in ways to recognize that being basic ain't it, that
Hmm.
mhm,
you got one life to live, one vessel to live it in.
mm,
And our thought and our goal today is to just talk about it a little bit and give different perspectives on it. So that's the
mm.
reason why I thought it would be dope to have this conversation on 4050 Social Club.
Yeah.
And what I just shared with you,
Mm,
it's
Hmm.
got 4 or 5 more paragraphs where Levon goes into more detail about it. So just wanted to just pivot and say, we'll just plant that right there.
Yeah, that was beautiful. So I guess now, Dukes, to come to you because that got
Right.
into what the idea of being basic is. But what would you say that looks like for a man, a black man in his 40s and 50s?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of ways that it shows up. But I would just say that, one of the things that kind of makes me a little uncomfortable with this whole notion of being basic is just settling. Like when you
Mm,
settle for life beneath your capacity. Once you've already have the sense that you've already arrived and that's your reality, but also when comfort really replaces curiosity.
mm,
I find it
Mm,
very hard to
that's
believe
good.
that
That's
even
good.
at my 40s or my 50s, I mean, I'm 50, I'll be 51 in April,
mm,
and this is not the point where I'm downshifting. This is really where I'm still not necessarily gunning the pedal, but
mhm,
I'm going at a pace that keeps me, consistent with other people. I'm
mm,
challenging myself to live beyond what limits that the world may want to place on me,
mm,
and even perceptions that people may have of what your 50s should look like. When you look at pictures of people who were in their 40s and 50s, and I wouldn't even say 40s and 50s, but their late 20s and their 30s, 10, 20, 30 years ago. I mean, they looked weathered. And
mhm,
when I tell people that I'm
Mm,
50 and I'm like 51, they're like, "Ooh, there's no way you're," and I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm very proud of it. But it's not so much of just about what I'm looking like, but it's also what I'm doing. I look at life as it's always an opportunity to learn. A friend of mine, he's a fraternity brother of mine that I met back in 2000, and we've worked together. And he said, the moment you stop being a student is the moment that you really die. And I
amen.
remember
yeah.
listening to that, and this was a couple of decades ago. And he said, you just have to always be a sponge. You
Mm,
always have to be a sponge. And so, for people who do live this basic life, I mean, they're living on autopilot. They're just
mm,
Yeah.
allowing life to kind of happen, and they're
Yeah.
not interacting with it. It's almost living a life where you stop having a purpose.
mm, mm,
When I wake up every morning, I'm thinking about not just the routine of my life, but I'm also thinking about what is going to happen in this life, in this day that's going to be life giving, not just for me, but also, who am I going to touch? What
mm,
conversation I'm going to have that's going to leave a mark, an imprint on a relationship, whether it's, with a stranger, whether with it, with its, a really good friend of mine, or just someone who I'm so familiar with that I see them constantly, but I haven't really tapped into who they are, or I haven't
mm,
really been vulnerable enough to share who I am. And I
mm,
think that
mm,
that's
okay.
what we were made to be. I mean, we were made to be in relationship with one another. And maybe it's the Midwestern in me because I mean, you grow up in the Midwest, you make eye contact with virtually everyone that you meet. You
Mm,
don't just keep your head down and bury your head in the sand and just kind of navigate the world mindlessly or aimlessly. You connect. And
Yeah.
that's something that I remember when I first moved to Washington, people told me, you keep your head on a swivel and you don't make eye contact with people because people will think that you are weird or you're a
mm,
threat.
mm,
And I've always kind of pushed that beyond that perception. It's like, you know what? No, that's not how I navigate the world.
yeah.
And if
Well,
it's going to make someone feel uncomfortable, I'm gonna obviously disarm that discomfort and let them know that it is okay to be comfortable even if you're uncomfortable. Jay, you
Yeah.
were gonna say something.
yeah, I guess I definitely feel you in a lot of things that you're saying. But there's some people out there that just choose to be basic on purpose. And I think,
Mm.
Hmm.
how do we really look at that population? Because on one hand, it's like you got people like us that are like, you gotta, like you said, curiosity and
Mm,
growing. If you stop
Mhm.
doing those things, you're dying. But then there's a group of people that are like, I'm basic because I choose to be basic on purpose, and there should be nothing wrong with that. And so I want to have that conversation too, because I don't want people
Yeah.
that make the choice. It is a choice. But I'm
mm,
like also recognizing that your choice has limitations.
mm,
So
Yeah.
what
Yeah, I
what are your
mean,
thoughts
even
there?
But yeah, even with that, I mean, there may be people who just simply say, you know what, I'm comfortable with being basic. And I'm not saying that I want to demonize people who choose to settle in that space. What I really would like to encourage and invite some people who have kind of resigned to that posture is to ask themselves, what is it that has been gifted inside of you that you've
Mhm.
chosen not to give to the people that you may have an impact on that you have not yet dared to reach out to?
Mm.
Yeah,
I think each and every one of us has something that is so unique and it's a gift. And it's kind of like almost there's and we're not going to get too far into scripture, but it's the parable of the talent.
Mm.
The parable of the talent. Think of the one who had one and what he did. He
yeah,
buried it.
Mm.
yeah,
He
yeah,
buried it. He hid it. And I think sometimes when we find ourselves being okay with being basic, what we've done is said it's okay to hide that talent
Mm.
that has been given to us and then just let it sit there. Don't even allow it to draw any interest. We just bury it and then we bring it back up and say, okay, well, I was afraid that if I did anything with it. I mean, there's a certain, danger in risking getting out of your comfort zone. There's a
Mhm.
danger in simply saying, you know what, I am going to share who I really am at the very core.
Yeah.
Because a
yeah,
friend of mine once said, the world will really like you when they get to know you. And I think there is a danger in being so basic that you prevent people from getting to know you. Like what's
yeah,
beneath whatever it is, that facade that you put in front of the world that really masks the very authentic piece of who you are. God didn't create us to be basic. I'll
Mm.
just put that out there. And so for anyone who says, I'm okay with being just the way I am, well, I'll tell you that there's a creator that said, I made you for more. And the ordinary, even if the ordinary has been your life for 40 to 50 years, I think that there is something that is on the horizon that is waiting for you to just simply say, here I am.
yeah. I
Mm.
can't help but think about, as we talk about basic and purpose,
Hmm.
something about 40s and 50s transitioning into that. And CJ, I would definitely want to hear your perspective on this. When do you find purpose? Like,
Mm.
we're going through our lives and we're like traveling down this treadmill or a maze or whatever, and we're going through the different stages of basic to purpose and trying to make sure that we're finding it, like we're on this quest. But like some people never find it, right? But some people do. I guess I'm curious about purpose. When does purpose actually intersect with your age and your life and your mindset? Because I feel like those things have to all intersect in a way for you to really recognize this is my purpose.
Mm.
Um, I'm just curious, CJ, if you give me your thoughts on
Yeah.
purpose.
Well, yeah, there's a lot there, but there's so much that I'd heard the two of you all to say over the last however many minutes it was, and I kept wanting to jump in, but I was just so riveted by it. So bring me back to the purpose thing because I want to get into that. But there is something that I want to bring up about the idea what basic is. Like part of it too, we don't get to define for somebody what is basic versus what is somebody following their calling. Like it is such an individual thing that is something you have to allow people to do. And what I find fascinating about it, when you think of the term basic, you think of something that's bland, that's
Hmm.
vanilla, is flat, it's low energy, it's all that. But I actually push back against that a little bit because I would also say being basic to me, and this gets at something that Dukes was talking about, and Jay, you were talking about it too. Being basic to me is like not finding that gift and not following that gift. So you can do something that's real basic and actually be by the world standards successful, like extremely
Yeah.
successful. But if you're just following the crowd and you're capitalizing on that and making it a lucrative thing to me, you can do that and still be extra basic because there's no depth to it. There's just none.
Yeah.
So when I think about purpose, it brings me to the idea of gifts. And again, this is something that came
Hmm.
up over the last several minutes and what you all were saying. I really do believe that each of us is endowed with something. I don't know
Yes.
how
Yeah.
to figure out what it is for everybody else because it's such an individual thing, but there is something that each of us is capable of giving to the world. No one before us, no one now in existence, no one after we are dead and gone is going to be able to bring to the world exactly what it is that we're able to do. You might float in the same space with people who do things similarly, but it's just as individual to you as your fingerprint is. So now we
Yeah.
start talking about purpose. And what I would say, because one of the things people talk about, like, oh, I have purpose, and other people like, well, You have purpose, but I have ambition. And a lot of people wonder if those two are the same thing. And I would say no, because to me, purpose is more about purpose is an act of being. Purpose is an act of being. Ambition to me is more an act of doing. When you are
Yes.
being exactly who it is that you are meant to be, when you are in that, you are flowing in that space, that means you're in that space where you're giving to the world exactly what it is that you were endowed with the world to give. And we don't live in a
Mhm.
space that allows people, that really encourages people to find that and to be it. That's one of the issues I think I have with the educational system. Educational system is taught like what most of us are taught, not that uber elite class that gets to define what happens in the world, but for most of the rest of us, as we're coming up, we're taught how to do for someone else. We're taught how to
Yes.
Sure,
make money for someone else. We're taught how to do this for someone else
sure.
and to run the machine and keep it going. That to me is about what basic is. You might be
Yeah.
that person. There are people out there where I could probably look at them and say, you know what, we might think that's basic. That might be them fulfilling their calling. Right? Because again, I don't think we
Yeah.
have the right to judge what somebody else is doing in that way. But I think if people encourage people to look within and find what that thing is as they're on the
Yes.
journey to find it, because I would tell you for me, my purpose is trying to deepen. Okay. Like my purpose in life, I feel, and it's probably come to me over the last handful of years, it is to try to deepen. There are things about me and my life that have pushed me down that path. They have called me in that direction. And I feel that as I am trying to do that, deepening to me means that I'm trying to work on the relationship with that force that I choose to call God. Like I think that is what my
Yes.
purpose is. I could look out and
Mhm.
say, I think that's what everybody else's purpose is, but I don't know that. Like, I really don't know that. I
Yeah.
know that for me, I feel that's what it is. So instead of looking at all the things around, like I'm gonna focus on the horizontal stuff and make this happen and that happen. As I focus on this vertical relationship, all the rest of that stuff starts to take care of itself. That's an act of faith
Yeah.
for me. And I feel like
Mm.
that is my purpose. So in doing that, my ambition is to live out my purpose. What I feel my purpose is an act of being, is an act of trying to deepen.
And on that note, y'all, 4050 Social Club over and out. We appreciate having you on here, Dukes. We'll see you
Thank you,
again, my
fellas.
friend. And
Appreciate you guys.
y'all be well, everybody. Peace.
Thank you. Peace. Peace.